Mr. Rode, thank you very much for your time and for joining us this Sunday. So that's a very real situation for many South Africans, single parents, some families who, while not qualifying for an RDP house, do not have sufficient income or disposable income to qualify for a home loan. And they continually feel locked out of home ownership. So what is at fault here, the system?
Yeah, it's a system. You're quite right. The problem is the moment you start subsidizing part of the market, in this case RDP housing, then of course you create problems in an economy like ours, because then you have these inequities that developed. If you earn more than 3,500, then all of a sudden you're not entitled to a gratis house. I think our whole system must be reinvented. In fact, the previous Minister of Human Settlements a few years ago made the point that RDP houses have become unsustainable. The fiscus simply, in other words, the government finances simply cannot afford it. It's as simple as that. In fact, going back to 1979, I remember at a breakfast meeting, the then director of the Bureau for Economic Research at Stellenbosch University made the same point. Then already, that South Africa cannot afford to give everybody in this country a house. It's as simple as that. Mm. The psychological problem with giving away houses, or anything for that matter, is that you create a dependency on the state. You create a culture of entitlement. And then you have Swedes flying in from Sweden and come build houses for poor people in Hout Bay. Laughable things like that are happening. It's as if the people who have moved to Cape Town or to Johannesburg or to Durban all of a sudden can't build their own houses. Whereas where they came from, they built their own houses. Just like all our forefathers, whether we are from Europe or from Africa, at one stage when we were poor enough, we built our own houses. Mm. So what is as I see it, what is the solution to the problem? A complete rethink. I think our aim should be, our goal should be to establish proactively serviced sites for people, but it must be done proactively before people start moving into illegal sites where there aren't any services. And then you build your own house. Hmm.
Mr. Rode, I want to refocus our discussion here not so much on those people who are dependent on RDP housing, but look at the missing middle, those who do not expect a handout of a free house. They are looking after themselves, they're stable financially. However, they're not quite at that point where banks see them as a safe bet in terms of a home loan. And there's quite a chunk of these missing middle people, small families, people who are first-time potential home buyers who, in a market that is currently favorable to buyers, still are not seen by banks as being a safe bet. How do we change the approach from banks looking at the criteria for home loans for these missing middle?
There's no ways that you can force the banks to do this. I mean, even the government would be too scared to start a bank who would give loans to people who earn 4,000 rands a month. The solution is to build your own stuff gradually over time. If you were to travel through Africa, you will always, you will be amazed to see how many half-built houses there are. And the reason is people build their own houses.
To add on to that point then, where do people build houses? Because one has to work under the assumption that someone who is a young professional, someone who comes from a space of poverty but who is now earning, let's say hypothetically 10,000 rand a month. As a single parent, that's still not enough to qualify for a home loan because there's not enough disposable income. Yet, said person would naturally want to live in an urban environment where it's not as easy as just building your own house on a piece of land because you have to buy that property. That becomes problematic.
Well, that's why, it should start with the municipalities who are in turn financed by the Treasury and proactively develop serviced sites where these people who are marginal, right, from a financial point of view, from a home ownership point of view, they are marginal, where they can then, through sweat equity, build their own houses. They get the site for free, maybe, or they must rent it from the province or from the state or whatever. That is the solution. South Africa simply cannot afford to increase the limit from 3,500 rands per month for RDP to say 10,000 rands. We simply can't afford it. Our economy is too small. The number of taxpayers are too few. So I firmly believe that it's sweat equity is the solution to get away from this entitlement culture that we have at the moment that the state must provide. I'll be the first to agree with you. I remember when I was young and how difficult it was to buy my first house. I was in that same position, and I had a degree behind me and a good job. Unfortunately, I could borrow a few thousand from my dad at the time, which I had to repay, by the way. And yes, I understand that problem, but I can't find, the state can't be the solution, except for what I'm proposing here is that the provinces or the municipalities must proactively provide serviced sites where people then can build their own houses over time. It takes many. I had a cousin who did that in Honorist, near Hermanus. He built his house over many, many years as he could afford to build to buy new building materials. He built it himself, with the help, of course, of a few people. And you know,
Mr. Rode, unfortunately, I do apologize. That is where we have run out of time. We do appreciate your insights, though. That was property economist Erwin Rode speaking to us from Cape Town.